So I'm going to talk about a popular issue in witchcraft or the occult, and that's the inability to visualize. Now, there is actually a term for this, and it's called aphantasia. So aphantasia is actually the inability to produce images through the mind's eye. And why is this an issue in magic? Well, of course, if you can't visualize something, then you're going to have a problem in actually feeling like it's real. And there's probably some other issues around that that we'll touch on in this video. Now, how do you relate that over to magic? Well, this will really depend on the type of magic that you do. So if you're doing witchcraft or spell casting, maybe this is enough for you just to stop there. Improve your visualization techniques, and we'll get into that in a second, just so you can open that mind's eye and be able to visualize, see, like if it's a color or it's your goals, because that's really what's important when you're doing witchcraft, to be able to see what you're actually aiming for. So you create that emotion and feeling, and so you're directing that energy towards that outcome. That's why visualization is really so important. But in other magical areas, when we're starting to move into more occultism or ceremonial magic, we actually take it one step further. So it's not just being in a state of Phantasia or Aphantasia, because that's just visualization through the mind's eye. What we're actually needing to go into is connecting with some of the other senses. So this will also depend on which area of the dark arts you're really engaged in. So for me personally, my form of Luciferianism is that I believe Lucifer and the ancient gods and deities are real and separate entities. They're not part of my imagination. They're not part of my mind that I'm trying to activate in order to become a human goddess. With that being said, now that I know that Lucifer or whatever deity, if it's Lilith or it's Hecate or one of the other deities, I believe that they are real separate entities, and that each of them has a different imprint, blueprint, energy. When I understand that, it's a little bit different from being able to visualize in my mind's eye, because I'm not just wanting to visualize them, I'm wanting to evoke them. So it's a little bit different from being in a state of Phantasia. So even with my ability to visualize, it's very different from my ability to be able to evoke, to be able to bring an entity from a different existence into a space, whether that being a scrying mirror or into a triangle or wherever we're actually trying to evoke this spirit. So I hope that makes sense. Now let's dive down a little bit further. When we think of people that who are able to visualize really well, but are also connecting to the spiritual world, what comes up for you? Who really does that? Now, there's a whole group of people that do that who aren't in the dark arts, and we call them shamans. Now, they have different names all around the world, but this isn't a new concept to do this. And when we look at shamans and how they connect, it's really through practice. So around the world, the way that people get into shamanism is generally passed down through the generations. Typically, there is a village elder or somebody who is highly skilled in this area, and they will choose someone, or someone will ask, and they'll take them under their wing and go through intense training for a long period of time in order to be able to get that person or train that muscle to be able to utilize their skill and ability. And it's not just going from a state of aphantasia into a state of Phantasia. This is the ability to actually connect to the spiritual world. If you went up to the shaman in the village and like, okay, so I want to learn to visualize and I've got 10 minutes, go. They'll probably say, okay, boom, goodbye. Now, why do they have such strong spiritual abilities? Why can they connect to the spiritual world? Well, it's more than just building up that ability. There's also ritual involved as well. So sometimes ritual could be like banging of the drums. The other is burning sacred bushes and herbs to basically to get high off the herbs, basically, to reach the spiritual world. Sometimes it is through an animal sacrifice. You have to sacrifice and give to the spiritual world in order for the spiritual world to give to you. It really depends all over the world, and every shamanic tradition has a slightly different way of achieving that same result. And so you may be wondering right now, well, I don't have access to the local village shaman. I'm sitting here in a cosmopolitan first world country. What the hell? Well, there is hope for you. If you don't want to go and see a therapist to open up the mind's eye, and once again, that is limited because we can take you a certain way to clear perhaps the past. If you get a good therapist, it'll help you clear that past with short-term therapy, help you take ownership and open that mind's eye. The other popular modern way to do this is through psychedelics, or things such as ayahuasca, where you actually, once again, I recommend you do this for the first time with a group or with somebody who is highly trained in taking you on that journey. It's, you know, I feel weird talking about this to YouTube audience, but if you've ever taken a trip or an E or something like that where you're going on a journey, you really need to have someone there along the way to help you through those bumpy patches, especially if those visualizations come on really strong and it could absolutely freak you out. If you're a magical person, perhaps you could open up to spiritual attack or magical attack while you're under there. And so I know with the ayahuasca, even in the USA here, there are places that actually you can go and prepare for, and they actually take you on this journey. Psychedelics and so forth have been used for years and years to help us open that third eye. Of course, drugs are illegal now because they can't be taxed. Well, they're not taxable, right? All the goody two-shoes in the 60s poo-pooed it, shut down the mental institutions, stopped cocaine during therapy sessions. And of course, in Silicon Valley, they stopped doing little acid trips to be able to create all these great visual ideas. Don't believe me? Go on and research this yourself. This is our history. So what can we do right now? The only way for the average person to really become better at this type of thing is through skill training. I honestly believe that everybody has the ability to open their third eye. Through my courses and through a book, I wrote a book of, it's basically 6 months, and it's just little daily exercises that you could do to open up that third eye. But what people really want these days, and I'm not putting you down, but it's just a fact, right? We want everything really quickly, whether it's a spell or your products or to be able to open up your third eye. We want this all to happen really quite fast. And unfortunately, it just doesn't work that way in the spiritual world. The first thing I say to clients, even when they come to me on the mundane level, is on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 being totally disinterested and 10 being, I'm fucking crazy about this. Where are you on that scale at wanting to improve or learn this skill and ability? And be honest. If you're sitting around a 5, like, oh, you know, I can take it or leave it, then don't even bother. Don't even start now, because you're not interested enough to actually activate that muscle. Your subconscious will kick in there, and you'll probably grab your phone, play Farmville, check out your ex or something like that. You're not going to be interested enough to take it seriously. That's just the truth. If you're sitting around a 7 or 8, start the exercises and see how interested you really are in this. Is this something you really want to develop, knowing that it's going to take 6 months to a year of consistent practice just to develop or strengthen that muscle? Like any muscle in your body, you have to strengthen that muscle to be able to open that third eye. Now, there's many great videos on the psychology and the mechanisms within the brain that have to activate in order to open this. It's not instant. You can't just talk to someone or watch a video or just do a meditation and be able to open this. It's actually, it's an active meaning you go into these exercises with the desire to improve, not just to get it over with so you can do something else. You have to actively have a goal that you want to improve. So as I said, if you're under 7 on that scale I just mentioned, just don't bother. You're not going to have any success at all. And I dare say that most people will be under 7. If you're about 8 to 10, then absolutely, let's go on this journey. And if you go on that journey, you will develop this skill. So in witchcraft and occultism, the way I improved or become a little more structured is via pathworkings. Pathworkings isn't a new concept at all. In both witchcraft and demonology and black magic, it's one way that I really enjoy going from basically the mundane level into a magical level. Now, this once again is through practice, but what this really is about, and I'm going to bastardize what pathworking is really about, is that say for example, I'm at the beginning of the path and I'll visualize it. Maybe it's a tree that's in a desert and the tree looks like a certain way. And behind the trees, there's a set of mountains. And maybe there's a stream that runs along. But every time I'm beginning that path, I see that exact image. And then I could fast track. Maybe I'm on top of the mountain now, and I'm looking down at the valley below, and I see a little house. But every time I'm from the tree, I jump up to the mountain, and then maybe I go straight to my astral temple. And when I see the astral temple, I'm actually waiting at the gate of the astral temple before I enter the stairs. And I can actually see the color, the imagery, the stairs, the door. And then I'll fast track that and I'm at the door, and it's my astral temple. It only recognizes me. And inside that astral temple, then I have my altar, my magical tools, the spirits I work with, and so forth. Do you see where I'm going? And when I exit from that path, I'll go from the astral temple down to the door, and I'll go back until I get to my starting point. And that is every time. So that's a very strong way for me to visualize and get into state without having to meditate and do all of these type of things. But I already had that imagination. I allowed myself to go into that state of imagination versus being in a state of being analytical. It's like, well, I can't see a tree. I can't see a tree. I can't see a tree. And maybe then remember, on that scale of 1 to 10, 1 being disinterested, 10 being very interested. If you're real with yourself, you're probably at a 4 or a 5 on that scale. You really don't want to see the tree. You just want the magical result. So just be a little bit honest there. Okay, so I've given my version of Aphantasia, and I hope this has helped you. Like I said, I don't plan or I don't research these things. I'm just talking off the top of my head. So if you know something a little bit more about this or something more helpful for everyone, please post it under there. So many of you are gurus in your own industry. So I love when other people help everyone else. All right, have a fabulous night, everyone, and I'll catch you next time. Bye for now.